The Kensington Grand had hosted 100 partners' dinners before this one, but Rosalind Fenwick would remember this particular evening for the rest of her life, though not for any of the reasons she expected when she stepped out of the town car in her navy satin gown, her husband's hand steady at the small of her back. She had made partner 11 months ago, youngest in the firm's 90-year history. Ashcombe and Reyes did not hand out corner offices for sentiment, and Rosalind had earned hers the hard way, 3-hour weeks in cases other associates were too afraid to touch. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, a quiet one, at least in theory. The annual partners' dinner, black tie, top-floor ballroom, chandeliers dripping gold light onto white tablecloths, string quartet tuning in the corner. Beside her walked Emery Van Tassel, her husband of 6 years, in a charcoal blazer he'd bought off the rack because he said there was no sense spending money on something he'd wear twice a year. He didn't love these dinners. He told her that, honestly, the way he told her everything without performance. But he came because she asked him to, and because he was proud of her, plainly and without complication, in a way that made the whole room feel unnecessary to him. Emery ran a construction and property company, small, by the standards of the men in that ballroom. He built things. He fixed things. His hands carried the permanent marks of a decade spent on job sites, calluses that no amount of expensive soap could soften, and he never apologized for them. The trouble started at the hors d'oeuvres table, the way it usually does, quietly, almost politely, before anyone had had enough champagne to be careless out loud. "So, Emery," said Whitfield Cross, a senior partner with silver hair, and a laugh that arrived a half-second before anything funny had actually been said. "Rosalind tells us you're in construction." "Something like that," Emery said, and smiled, because it was true enough. "Contractor work, renovations, that sort of thing." "Mostly, yeah." Cross nodded slowly, the way a man nods when he has already decided what he thinks and is only waiting for permission to say it. "Good, honest work," he said, in the particular tone people use when honest is doing all the heavy lifting. The word good cannot manage alone. Rosalind felt the air shift before she understood why. She had spent 6 years defending Emery from exactly this tone, this specific flavor of condescension dressed up as compliment, and she had hoped, foolishly perhaps, that tonight might be different. It was not different. By the time the group moved to their assigned table, 3 other partners had drifted into the conversation, each one contributing some small, careless remark, the kind that would sound harmless in isolation and cruel only in accumulation. Delphine Okafor, merger specialist, with a laugh like cut glass, asked Emery if he'd ever considered something more scalable. Preston Vance, the firm's newest equity partner and the loudest man in any room he entered, asked whether Emery had thought about franchising, like the guys who do the home renovation shows. Emery answered each question evenly. He did not flinch. He did not perform offense, because he genuinely did not feel much of it. He had built his life brick by brick, literally, in some cases, and he had long ago stopped needing rooms like this one to understand its value. But Rosalind felt every word land on her instead, the way second-hand humiliation always lands harder than the original. It reached its peak over the second course, when Preston Vance, 3 glasses of Bordeaux into the evening, leaned back in his chair and said, loud enough for half the table to hear, "Honestly, Emery, I have to ask, does it ever bother you, being at these things? Everyone here bills $400 an hour, and you're out there with the tape measure." The table went quiet in that particular way. Tables go quiet when everyone is waiting to see whether something has gone too far, and whether anyone is going to say so. Rosalind opened her mouth. Emery touched her hand under the table once, gently, the smallest possible gesture that meant "let me." "No," Emery said, "it doesn't bother me." "No?" Preston pressed, grinning, clearly enjoying himself. "Come on. Table full of partners, associates, general counsel types. You've got to feel it a little." "I used to," Emery said, setting down his fork with the unhurried calm of a man who had never once needed to raise his voice to be heard. First couple years Ross and I were together, I'd sit at dinners like this and feel like the help who wandered in through the wrong door. A few uncomfortable laughs. Someone at the far end of the table shifted in their seat. But then I got some perspective, Emery continued, about what actually keeps the lights on around here. Careful, Preston said, still grinning. But something in his eyes had sharpened. That almost sounded like a threat. It's not a threat, Emery said. It's just true. You want to know what I do, specifically? I don't just swing a hammer, Preston. I own a property and development company, Van Tassel Holdings. We acquire commercial buildings, we renovate them, and we lease them out to businesses who need the space. The table was fully silent now. Rosalind watched Whitfield Cross's expression shift, some slow recalculation happening behind his eyes. That's admirable, Delphine offered carefully, sensing the ground had moved beneath the conversation without yet understanding how far. Thank you, Emery said. It's been a good decade for us. We picked up a building on Wacker back in 2019. Old, kind of run down. Most of the developers who looked at it walked away because the renovation costs scared them off. We didn't walk away. Took about 18 months and more money than I want to remember, but we brought it back. 12 floors restored, the original limestone facade, redid every mechanical system in the building. Sounds like quite a project, Cross said, his voice noticeably more careful now. It was, Emery agreed, and once it was finished, we needed a tenant who could fill that kind of space. Prestige address, downtown Chicago, the whole package. Took us a while to find the right fit, but we did. He paused, and for the first time all evening, Rosalind saw something flicker across her husband's face that wasn't patience. It was quiet, contained amusement, the look of a man who has been holding a card close to his chest all night simply because no one had asked the right question. You'll actually recognize the name of the current tenant, Emery said. Signed a 15-year lease with us in 21. Full floor. Options to expand into 2 more as they grow. Good tenant, actually. Pays on time. Never gives us trouble about the building. Preston Vance had gone very still. It's Ashcombe and Reyes, Emery said. You're all sitting, right now, in chairs, in a building I own. Every one of you signs your paychecks from an office suite that belongs to Van Tassel Holdings. Your firm's name is on your letterhead. Mine is on the lease. The silence that followed had a physical weight to it. Someone's glass clinked against a plate, and the sound seemed enormous. Rosalind did not move, did not smile, did not gloat. She simply watched, because some moments do not need help from anyone standing near them. That's Whitfield Cross started, and then stopped, visibly recalculating every word he had said over the last 45 minutes, running back through the tape, trying to remember exactly how bad it had been. That's your building? That's my building, Emery said, not unkindly. There was no triumph in his voice, no edge sharpened for the occasion. He said it the way he might mention the weather. Rosalind didn't want me to bring it up tonight, actually. She thought it might feel like showing off. I told her I wasn't planning to say anything either. Figured it wasn't relevant to the evening. He glanced, briefly, at Preston. But you asked a direct question about whether it bothers me to sit at a table full of people, billing $400 an hour, while I carry a tape measure. Felt like it deserved a real answer. Preston Vance's jaw worked for a moment before anything came out. I didn't realize, he managed. Most people don't, Emery said. And there was something almost gentle in it, an offering rather than a blade. That's kind of the point of doing the work quietly. I'm not in this for anyone at a dinner table to be impressed. I'm in it because I like building things that last. And because when I was 23 years old, with $400 in a checking account and a truck that barely ran, nobody in a room like this one would have looked at me twice. So now, when I own the room, I try not to make anyone feel the way I used to feel. He picked his fork back up. Anyway, he said, this chicken's actually very good. Somebody should tell the kitchen. The rest of the dinner did not return to its earlier register. The mockery, so easy and thoughtless 20 minutes earlier, had evaporated entirely, replaced by something quiet. Not quite shame, though shame was somewhere in the mix. but a kind of recalibration, the particular discomfort of people realizing they had spent an hour condescending to someone who held more leverage in that building than any of them ever would. Whitfield Cross, to his credit, was the first to try to repair it. Later in the evening, as the plates were cleared and coffee arrived, he made his way over to where Emery and Rosalind sat and extended a hand. "I owe you an apology," he said, without preamble. "That was thoughtless of me earlier. All of it." "You don't owe me anything," Emery said, shaking his hand. "But I appreciate you saying it." "For what it's worth," Cross said, "the building really is beautiful. My office looks out over the river. Best light in the whole firm." "Corner office, 12th floor?" Emery asked. "That's the one. I picked that window myself. Fought the architect on the sill height for 2 weeks." A small, genuine smile. "Glad someone's enjoying it." Rosalind said little through the rest of the evening, but she found her hand seeking Emery's beneath the table more than once, and each time his fingers closed around hers without hesitation, steady and unbothered, exactly as they had been all along. Driving home that night, the city lights sliding past the window in long gold streaks, she finally asked the question that had been sitting in her chest since the second course. "Why didn't you ever tell me you wanted to say something like that? All these years, sitting through dinners like this." Emery kept his eyes on the road, unhurried as ever. "Because it was never about needing them to know," he said. "I know what I've built. You know what I've built. That was always enough for me. Then why say it tonight?" He glanced over at her, and in the passing light, she saw the same calm certainty that had first made her fall for him, years before either of them had a career worth mentioning at a dinner table. "Because Preston asked a direct question in front of my wife, in a room full of people who work for a firm that pays rent to my company," he said. "I don't mind being underestimated. I've built a whole life on being underestimated, but I wasn't going to sit there and let you watch it happen without giving you the truth. If it was ever going to come out." Rosalind laughed softly, shaking her head, some of the evening's tension finally leaving her shoulders. "You could have led with the building, you know. Saved us both 45 minutes of Preston being insufferable." "Where's the fun in that?" Emery said. And for the first time all night, he actually smiled. The story made its way through the firm within a week, the way stories like that always do, retold and reshaped at every desk it passed, until it hardly resembled the quiet dinner where it began. But the detail that stayed consistent, the one people kept coming back to, was not the reveal itself. It was the fact that Emery Van Tassel had sat through 45 minutes of condescension without once needing to defend himself, without raising his voice, without performing anger he did not feel. Because a man who has already built the floor beneath everyone's feet rarely needs to prove he belongs in the room above it. He simply waited to be asked, and when he finally was, he told the truth, plainly, the way he told everyone everything, and let the silence that followed say the rest.